Welcome back to another episode of Keep Austin Safe, the podcast where we take you behind the scenes of the Austin Police Department. I'm your host, Jose Mendez, and today we're joined by APD's Sex Crimes Unit. Now, this is a unit that's responsible for investigating anywhere from 1,800 to 1,900 sex crime cases each year. Joining us today, we have two very special guests. The first is Detective Anna Jackson with APD's Sex Crimes Unit. Now, she's been with the department for 15 years, and she's been with our Sex Crimes Unit for 5 years. Also joining us is Victim Services Supervisor Silvana Giono. She's been with the Austin Police Department Victim Services Unit for just over 7 years. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
So we have a lot of great information to get into. So diving right in and starting with you, Detective, can you tell us a little bit about the Sex Crimes Unit and what kind of cases your unit handles?
Our Sex Crimes Unit investigates all kinds of cases such as that have to involve sex crimes related misdemeanors and felonies. Those include from like indecent assault to indecent exposure to it could be a more serious offense, could be a sexual assault to an aggravated sexual assault. And we sometimes venture off into other offenses, but usually there are related to a sex crimes component.
Okay, great. And now, Silvana, can you tell us a little bit about what your unit does and what's the correlation between your unit and Sex Crimes Unit?
Yeah, so victim services is pretty big, but we have 6 counselors that are actually in the unit. So we have 6 counselors are working jointly with detectives. They're primarily assigned to felony cases as they tend to be the most severe. So we want to prioritize felony cases. But then we also try to assign as much as we can the misdemeanor cases.
Now, Detective, looking at statistics, how many cases does your unit handle yearly?
Yearly, it's approximately 1,800 cases, but that includes felony and misdemeanors, probably about half and half, roughly.
Okay. And then, Silvana, can you tell us a little bit about your unit and how many cases y'all deal with yearly?
Yeah, I think from the last 2023 report, we had about 2,970 cases that victim services worked.
Wow. Now, going back to the 1,800, 1,900 cases that APD typically investigates yearly, Silvana, can you tell us how many of those cases actually get assigned a victim services counselor? Is it every case, or is there a certain criteria or certain cases? Can you explain a little bit about that?
I would love to assign every case, but given capacity, we prioritize what I would call most severe, but our felony type of cases. And then we prioritize just based on impact of trauma, needs, and additional support that survivors may need. But again, wish we could provide that to all.
Great. Now, Detective, when someone reports a sexual assault, what does that process look like from a law enforcement perspective?
Well, the first part is a victim has to make the report. And by doing so, you're talking to patrol officers and making the report. Depending, again, each case is a little different. So case by case, they will contact our unit for further guidance. But from there, we would make decisions as to if there's going to be a safe exam. A safe exam is a forensic exam that is conducted on a victim to gather evidence. But the safe exam is not only for gathering evidence, but also providing them with medical services that they may need that could be as a result from the sexual assault. From those cases, they get assigned to detectives. Those detectives will then review the initial report and move forward with contacting a victim of the offense and determining what they would like, because sometimes victims just want to make the report. Sometimes they want to move forward with an investigation. Whatever it is that they want us to do, we're going to try to follow it to the best of our abilities.
Great. Now, Silvana, what does that process look like from a victim services perspective?
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, victim services is quite vast. So we actually have a crisis unit that gets auto dispatched to all sex crimes calls. So again, we're a much smaller unit, but our goal is to respond to survivors in crisis. And so when patrol goes out, we have a counselor that also meets with the survivor. And we are working alongside SWORN to ensure that the victim has what they need to be able to move forward with whatever they want to do in the process. So like Detective Jackson mentioned, it's going to look different for everybody. One of the big things we do on scene is help schedule that forensic exam. So we do a lot of work with our community partners at SAFE to ensure that we have those exams set up for survivors if that's something they want to do. And that's just at the response level. Then again, we have the counselors in the unit who are assigned, who provide follow-up using clinical judgment, as we are all master's level clinicians, to provide support for victims that are trauma-informed.
Great. So just so everyone's clear, you do have crisis counselors that respond to the scenes if an event like this has taken place. And then you also have counselors kind of like behind the scenes dealing more of like the long-term investigation, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Great. And I've seen you guys firsthand. You guys do a tremendous job, and you guys are just a great asset to APD. It's just nice to know that there are people available for those people that are in need.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Detective, how do you and your team support victims of sex crimes?
So all of our detectives are vastly trained and victim-centered approach. So we will focus on what the victim needs and what the victim wants in order to move forward in investigation. Again, every victim's completely different, and from there we decide on what their steps are. As previously mentioned, sometimes they just want to report it, and that's what they need to do. But sometimes they want more. They want justice. They want to see that this person that faces further consequences. But what we do offer them is, again, we let them know from the beginning that we're here for them. We give them just, a welcome, like we're here to support you. In addition to that, we let them know about the victim services counselors that we work hand in hand with. We also have soft rooms in our building where they're not just cold rooms. We have blankets, we have comfortable chairs where they're able to sit and be more comfortable than just in a cold room with, hard chairs.
Yeah, just making them feel comfortable. And
yes.
Now, Silvana, this staying on victim support, obviously this is your area of expertise. So how does your team support victims of sex crimes? And are there certain resources that are immediately available to them?
Sure. I think resources just depend on what a victim needs. I think what we want to educate the community is that someone who's experienced trauma may not recognize this individual trauma as the priority. They might just need things to survive. And so we're assessing really a bigger picture. We're not just focusing on the crime itself. So we might just start by talking about basic needs. What do they need to just get through the day? And so it might change the way we approach a victim. So we might not be focusing so much on the criminal justice process, but just what healing may look like for a survivor.
And I'm sure that looks differently from everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Detective, what goes on? Just give our listeners an idea of what goes on behind the scenes of some of these cases, and can you talk about technology playing a big role in solving some of these cases? Now, oftentimes we see shows like, let's say, CSI, for example, right, where the results of these investigations come back almost immediately, right? But is that reality, or is that some TV show thing that doesn't exist?
There's definitely a longer process for that. Because the detectives have more than one case, they have to kind of balance everything out. But normally it's the first step is reviewing the case, contacting the victim based on maybe they're not available at a certain time. So we try to accommodate, if they are not available, we try to schedule an interview with them to move forward with an interview. We will talk about the incident from there. Depending on what happens, there's several components that we try to gather evidence from. A lot of it is from technology, such as social media, text messages, also GPS locations, like sometimes, Life 360 or whatever other app that they use to locate themselves and try to, would help investigate where they were at last, who were they with, and again, social media, people post, while they're drinking, who they're with. All that information helps us narrow down what occurred and how it occurred. And some of those information we may have to issue search warrants for to try to gather further evidence because maybe it's not on, a bit readily available that the survivor doesn't have.
Yeah. And I'm assuming the forensics plays a big role in sex crimes cases, right? Is there a time period that someone can expect maybe a case to be solved from start to finish, or is it just case by case?
It's definitely case by case, but forensics does play a role in it at times. And those forensic exams can last up to 3 months, but could be longer depending on how many rounds of exams we're doing. But again, every case is different, so I cannot give you an answer where we're like, oh, it could happen that same day where we can move forward with a criminal charge. However, it can take up to a year, 6 months. It just depends. Each case is completely different.
Great. Now, Detective, back to you. What are some of the biggest myths or misconceptions that people have about sexual assaults?
I think one of the biggest ones is that a married couple, that the wife doesn't have to give consent. Usually, they're like, oh, well, we're married, so I thought it was okay. It's just one of those big misconceptions. In addition to just couples in general, right? And then just because you're in a relationship, that doesn't give anybody the authority to give, for you to just have, sexually assault you whenever they think it's okay. In addition to DNA, people think that we need DNA for every sexual assault, and that's not the case. Although it's helpful, it does not. We're not going to turn our back on a case just because there's no DNA there.
Yeah. And Silvana, from your perspective, what are some of those misconceptions that?
Yeah, I think she nailed the head on some of the ones that I like to highlight, but some of the ones is also it's not the stranger in the alley. It tends to be someone someone who's established trust. It's also that men can't be victims. It actually happens more often than not. And one of the reasons I think we don't see those numbers is because there's a fear to report. And also, I think false reporting tends to be something that the community thinks happens a lot more than it actually does. And it really is not as common as I think we see it in the day-to-day work. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Going back to one of the myths, when I was working patrol, one of the, I would say the most reoccurring thing was that, men believed that they couldn't be victims, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does that percentage or ratio look like when we're talking about men and women being victims of sexual assault? Is there a ratio or is there a percentage?
Yeah, so we tend to pull our stats from RAIN, and they'd say 1 in 6 males can be victims of sexual assault, while 1 in 4 females can be victims of sexual assault.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot bigger of a number for males than I would have expected.
Much
so 1
bigger.
in 6 is,
Yes.
Detective, what message would you give someone who's experienced sexual assault but hasn't come forward with reporting it? Is there a statute of limitations with sex offenses, meaning that is there a cutoff period where you can no longer report it?
There is definitely a lot of components to statute of limitations and that could affect an investigation. However, that's usually it's about 10 years, depending on the case and what actually occurred. But we could the biggest thing is just report it, even if you don't want to do anything at that moment. Just reporting it and documenting it, it's there for us to either further investigate or gather some information that we could utilize now for the future when you're ready. Because sometimes, like, again, for example, video, and that doesn't deter us. That does not deter us from moving forward with an investigation, but it does help us retain video information or cell phone data or whatever we are needing for the investigation that we could at least retain now for the future when you are ready, if you are ever ready to move forward with a further investigation.
So somebody that's experienced maybe a sexual assault that hasn't reported it, but is thinking about reporting, you're saying about up to 10 years. If one day I'm just ready to come forward and it's been, let's say, 5, 6, 7 years later down the road, it's still okay to come forward and report that type of incident, right?
Correct.
Okay. And Silvana, do you have anything from your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think going alongside what Detective Jackson is whenever you're ready, make a report. Also, what we like to clarify is that Victim Services does not work so alongside detectives that we can actually provide support to survivors even if they have not made a report. So we are available to just help guide someone through the process, get all the tools they need to make the best decision for themselves. And if that's reporting, great. And if it's not, we still have tools to help them heal.
great. That's great advice. Now, Silvana, how can someone reach out for help or learn more about the services here in Austin? Do they have to necessarily be a victim or be attached to a specific case, or can they just inquire and
You can
reach out?
absolutely inquire. I think more education in the community is important to help survivors be able to report. So you can always call us directly at 512-974-5037 and ask to speak to a counselor. We also were able to create a wonderful website, atxbelieves.org, where you can get all of the tools, all of the information surrounding a sexual assault, not just how to report, but all the tools to help heal.
Great. Detective, these crimes can be very sensitive, right? And very emotional. What made you want to work in this unit?
I think just helping my community out. I'm from Austin, so I think that just taking pride in where I'm from and being able to help out my community, that's my biggest reason why I wanted to be part of the sex crimes unit. There's always a way that you can just help a victim and not only just sex crimes but everywhere. But I think that just being able to help my community and represent the community that needs help is the reason why I came over to sex crimes.
Great. And Silvana, I mean, you've been in victim services for about 7 years now. So what made you want to get into this line of work?
I think specific to sex crimes, I would say this is one of the most personal and life-altering crimes that could happen to somebody. And I think for a lot of victims, they feel like they're alone. So having someone in their corner, someone to support them, to believe them, to guide them through the systems, I think it provides a lot of motivation for me to do the work. And also, I think seeing those small successes, I think, can be missed by some. And I think being able to highlight those can help a survivor move forward.
Yeah. And kind of piggybacking off that, you have to be motivated, right, to do this particular job. What keeps you motivated?
Being able to find justice for the victims. Again, that ranges from case to case, and but just being able to get to that point where you're like, okay, we were able to determine that there's probable cause to move forward with an offense. I think that that's where the motivation comes, and being able to give them a little bit of relief and a little bit of starting the healing journey that they may have not already started.
Yeah. And Silvana, what motivates you?
I think recognizing those small things, as I mentioned before, is a huge motivator. I think every moment a victim feels safer, feels like they are going in the right direction in their journey, is what keeps me in the job.
So a question that we ask when we are about to wrap up every podcast: what is the hardest part about your job or the position that you're in right now?
Time. I'm wishing that you had more time to invest into every case, being able to just pour more energy into each case. We do pour a lot in there, but it takes longer. I just kind of want to spend 10 hours a day on each case and be able to get everything done that I needs to be done. But unfortunately, having so many cases also, we just have to find a balanced system.
Yeah. And Silvana, your hardest thing about your job?
I think patience and time. I have to agree. I think we are just such a small piece in someone's healing journey that we may not see the outcome, but hoping that we planted a good seed and know that they're going to grow into whoever they're supposed to be.
Detective, if you could give us one final tip for all those that are listening out there, leave us with one final tip.
If you're unsure, if something happened to you, just report it. We have detectives here, but we also have counselors here. And even if it is just to provide guidance, we're here for that. We can totally just what if situations. Again, counselors may have their portion of it, but we can also help out. But, reporting it at least will help us just document the incident and move forward when you're ready.
Great. And one final thought.
I think that although someone may not be a victim themselves, I think as a community, it's our responsibility to learn more about this particular crime so that we can support those around us that may be impacted by this crime.
Great. Now, Silvana, before we wrap things up here, talk to us a little bit about a special event that we have coming up.
Yeah, so we have a sex crimes discussion panel coming up on November 12th, where we will be discussing some of the questions and things the community has in regards to this crime time.
Great. And is that open to the public?
Yep.
Anyone can show up?
Yep, absolutely. Anyone's welcome.
Great. So Detective Jackson and Silvana, thank you for taking the time out of your day to come join us and speak with us. A lot of good information here, and hopefully some of our listeners who are listening were able to get some valuable information out of this. We want to thank you and your teams for all the work that you do behind the scenes. And we also want to thank you for the work that you do to make sure that these survivors are not only heard, but they're understood. So we appreciate you guys. For our listeners, thank you for joining us today. For more information about community events with the Austin Police Department, safety tips, news releases, follow us on our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and X as the Austin Police Department. We hope this conversation provides you with the resources that help everyone keep Austin safe.